if I lived here 30 years, I wouldn't understand the culture. And the more you get to know about it, the more you realize how much you don't know about it. They're the leaders in every technical industry there is, like their aircraft industry, all the heavy industry, shipbuilding, all the electronic fields, all the optical fields. And yet, despite that, they're as traditionally oriented a culture as there is. Most immediate thing one sees in Japanese culture is a lot of things that seem like they're contradictory. But there's a unity, despite what seems to be so schizophrenic in a country like this. When you find, for example, in a given situation, a certain behavior pattern works, and then you assume that behavior pattern works in several other similar situations. But what you find out is that each situation has its own set of rules. So, okay, I understand that more. Now, I suppose by the time I finish the picture, I might be somewhat knowledgeable about Japan, but certainly not in terms of anybody who truly understands Japanese culture.
A year ago, director Sidney Pollack came to Japan to make a motion picture. Pollack had to deal with a culture alien to him to understand the people in his film, particularly the Yakuza, those Japanese gangsters whose code of honor is as old as that of the samurai.
Herbie, on that, even though you'll be off camera, I'll cover that later. Get up and move yourself up into here somewhere. Dusty gets behind the door here, moves behind the door here with the gun. Robert steps down to open it.
Robert Mitchum came to Japan with Pollack. Together with actors Herb Edelman and Richard Jordan, he is one of the few Americans in the cast.
Dusty, you know, this is Kishi Keiko, the noted Japanese actress, and so on. And we cut.
Pollack had to accommodate his manner of working to a difference in language with his crew.
He comes in after the coat.
After the coat.
Well, then he'll be out of the frame.
No, what I'll do this.
He used an interpreter.
When we'll bring Oliver in,
Yes.
we'll have a four-shot. Then we'll pan with Kilmer. We'll pan with Kilmer, then we'll bring him back. Because we have to have a close-up cut of her when she says, why, where are you going? The R.
Then there was the precise phrasing of words for an actress who did not speak his language well.
Where are you going? Where are you going? Why, where are you going?
Where are you going?
Right. Why, where are you going?
Mitchum plays Harry Kilmer, an American who knows Japan and its traditions. He has returned to help his partner, to see a woman he is still tied to, and to collect on a debt of honor.
Action.
Did you use anything besides the 38 last night? No. You can hang on to all your collection except the 38. I'd be rid of that as soon as possible.
Doorbell.
Kilmer is aware of the danger in his mission.
Good morning, Harry.
Good morning.
Can I talk to you?
This time, it is a friend behind the door.
Ohio.
Thank you. Shibarak. I don't mean to be rude, but could we go for a walk?
Oh, we can leave. We were just...
No, it's all right. I'd prefer to walk if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right. Now, the only thing I gotta watch is the one over there, right?
Yeah, no, okay. Herb?
A Yakuza is a superb fighting machine with a code of ethics as rigorous as the famous samurai code of Bushido. A whole genre of films has sprung up in Japan about the underworld morality of these men. And the #1 star is Takakura Ken. He is an expert with a katana. There is no sharper blade, no deadlier, more frightening weapon than this long sword. Takakura Ken has the lean, rugged features of a Steve McQueen or Paul Newman. On screen, he speaks only reticently, but with great authority.
What can I do for you? I need to ask you a favor.
I have an obligation to you I can never repay.
The way his Japanese crew readies a set was also different to Pollack.
Well, in America, if you approach a scene photographically, one finds, let's say, the overall mood of the scene, gets a certain amount of ambient illumination in an area, marks the actors, and then does whatever fixing one has to do with the actors in each individual position. What happens here is it works. The Japanese are preoccupied with detail in every aspect of life, so that one takes an area like this set, for example, and it begins to be lit from the left-hand corner towards the right-hand corner, area by area by area. First the top section, then the middle section, then the bottom section, like a Japanese painting. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying they're different. So when you come to approach any kind of a creative problem and you're working with two different approaches, it's both more difficult and oftentimes more enriching because one is always learning from the other. And the blend of styles might be very interesting. That's what we hope will happen here.
Sidney Pollack has directed such diverse movies as They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, Jeremiah Johnson, and The Way We Were. He is mobile, articulate, and able to spell out every nuance of drama and movement of action. In Japan, he often has to do this through a translator, and then see if his directions are understood by the actors and the interpreter.
Killer's got the gun. So, you got him here and him there. The minute he turns to come toward you, you have to move to get out of here. And go.
How do you get through?
No, don't.
Hey, go get down! You have to always be on guard about making a travelogue when you come to a country as visually exotic as Japan. You tend to want to shoot it gratuitously, the temples and the shrines and pagodas, and it's all very, very exciting visually. But then you'd begin to be, I guess, just doing a kind of photojournalism, which doesn't really belong in a motion picture, at least not in this one.
The company moved from Tokyo to Kyoto to Osaka, the weather in each location reflecting and complementing the mood of the film. At the airport, scenes were shot that demonstrate Robert Mitchum's respect for the code of obligation he and Takakura Ken follow. In Japanese culture, it is called giri and ninjo, moral obligation and humanity. For the samurai, obligation was humanity, one inseparable from the other. In these films, the Yakuza attempts to pursue both obligation and humanity, but finds them drawing him increasingly apart. There are many sequences obligatory in every Yakuza film. Typically, there must be a sequence in a cemetery, with a visit to the grave of a loved one, before the Yakuza seeks his revenge against those who've put him in a compromising position. Most Yakuza films start with a man coming out of prison. In this one, Mitchum, without realizing it, has brought Takakura Ken out of retirement.
I talked with Hanako. He reminded
He
me of
has,
today.
therefore, placed a subtle obligation on himself.
Why didn't you tell me that he is no longer Yakuza?
You never asked me. Why does it matter so much?
Look, I asked him a little favor. And now, well, I wish I hadn't.
What was it?
Nothing, really. The point is, I don't want to come back after all this time and wind up owing him something. Do you suppose you could ask him to just forget all about it?
I could ask.
Where is your friend, Tanner?
Action. The whole theme of Giri Ninjo is a complicated contradiction to Western culture.
It's Giri. Giri? Hi.
It means obligation, right?
Burden.
Burden.
It's called the burden hardest to bear.
If it's going to be a real question, okay? I mean, what happens if you don't bear it? Yeah. And he sits, and then I go, I mean, is anybody going to come down on you?
Pollack must attempt to explain to actor Richard Jordan the rationale behind this code of honor.
That's such a quick assumption. That's why I locked the two of them together. So what happens if you don't want to? Who's going to come down on you for it?
No. Don't want to doesn't have anything to do with what you do. That just has to do with what you want to do. We're talking now about results. What happens if you don't do it? Not if you don't want to do it. What happens if you don't? You know, will God punish you if you don't do it? Not if you don't want.
Action.
Yeah, well, suppose you don't bear it. I mean, no one's going to come down on you.
No.
Well, you guys believe in some kind of heaven or hell?
No.
Then what is it that you believe in that makes you do it?
Giri.
What is cruel and inhumane in Western civilization is as much a part of Japanese life as flower arrangements, tea ceremonies, or a peaceful, secluded garden. For many centuries, the traditional Japanese forms have survived. The samurai and the Yakuza are part of that life. The system of wielding the sword, kendo, a part of the complex character of the Japanese.
It's such a strange culture. The more you get to know about it, the more you realize how much you absolutely don't know about it. I mean, like, there's something to me much more horrible about physical violence that has to do with blades than there is when I think about bullets. Now, I know ultimately and morally there's no difference. But boy, when I think of physical combat with swords, it just seems to me much more frightening, much more horrifying than when I think of physical combat with guns. Now, I don't know why that should be true, except that as an American, I guess I grew up watching physical violence in movies with guns. Maybe he can do something very acrobatic. If he's coming this way, there has to be something very difficult here. I mean, something very strange, some strange cut, almost down here. Mitchum he's just the kind of actor who makes you feel that it's absolutely possible he could explode with some kind of violence, even though there's always a gentleness that covers it. But boy, there's an undercurrent in his work that makes you believe he's absolutely capable of terrific violence.
Every Yakuza wears a full upper body tattoo. It reveals his profession and serves to define the personality of the wearer.
19. There must be more in the other rooms.
The climax of Yakuza films is an obligatory confrontation. The protagonists will face each other, always with swords, the katana, never guns.
Tono! You have surprise on your side, you know, before they can take a weapon. I think then the bodyguard, if he has a gun, you know, it has to be 2 quick strokes. One here. Almost one move. Almost one move. One. And then when he turns to go, by that time those men in there should have swords.
要あるのは殿だけだ。
It's very, very difficult to talk about what a picture is about. While you're making the picture, you're not always sure of what it's about. You find it as you go, and then too, what you think it's about as a director may not be what people think it's about who see it. From my point of view, I always felt that this picture was basically about 3 people who refused to change to accommodate to the changing morality of the time. They're almost antiques in a sense. They remain true to a set of standards and ethics and morals that has existed for them all of their life. They've never bent with the fad of morality that changes constantly. And there is an enormous bond of love that exists between the 3 of them, between the 2 men and between the woman and the 2 men. It always seemed to me that essentially, in the simplest terms, the movie was about promises kept. That Robert Frost poem that I read a long time ago and made a very vivid impression on me was something that I kept thinking about as I was making the film, which is, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. And that phrase was always very evocative to me. That this was a story about 3 people, really, who all had promises to keep and who keep them.
In a land of great beauty, with a culture all its own, Sidney Pollack is making a film of today, based on the old ways, the ways of the Yakuza.